Oh boy, I'm Saint Riot, and this is Elden Ring Invasions PvP, and it's time for more of that everybody's favorite turtle boy, the kerploding turtle. He kerplodes. How does he kerplode like that, you ask yourself? I can hear you. You're in my mind. How did you get there? The CIA put you there to make me kill myself. But that was pretty dark, right? Yeah, how does he kerplode? Sorry, caught myself off guard. He kerplodes with Law of Causality. It's a spell that makes you kerplode if you take too much damage in a short amount of time. And if you've watched all of my videos from start to finish, from the very first video I ever made until now, then you know, no one has done that. You know that I talked about this a couple videos ago. I said I would show you guys some shenanigans. I can't wait to show you guys some shenanigans. This spell is called Night Maiden's Mist. It hurts anybody who stands in it, even me, with physical damage, not magic damage, physical damage. That's an important distinction to make. So as you can see there, it makes me take some damage, right? You might see where this is going. So Law of Causality, if you take 3, ish hits, 3 or 4 in a short amount of time, you just get a big explosion of sacred damage. It does about 300 damage, and that's as good as it's going to get, unless you dedicate a build to it, which I guess you could if you wanted to, but I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to have it on my build and make it work with this build, whose entire purpose is blocking with the Carrion Knight Sword, which is, turtle-like behavior. Check this out. A 1, a 2, a 3, 4. You have to be careful with that spell, with the Law of Causality, because it still procs even on phantom hits. What does that mean? If someone attacks you and you roll the attack, but on their screen they hit you, as long as your connection is pretty decent, you will avoid the attack. However, the attack will still show up. I put that in slow motion so you can see what it's like when I get guard broke. I'm trying not to get guard broke, so let's do something different. Let's hit him with the block hit and then parry. Much safer. I've got so much stuff to talk about. Okay, so the phantom hits. Basically, somebody hits you on their screen, but you rolled. The sound effect for you getting hit will still play. Bleed, if your opponent had bleed on their weapon, it will still build up. Right there, you just saw me dodge, quote unquote, a blood loss, but I still had to sit there and take the animation, because that's just the nature of online in this game. The hit did no damage, but it still procced. Look at this. You can just block that. You can block anything. That's the whole point of this build, is to make that block as good as possible. And so that's what I've done. And I'll get into that, but I just had to explain the phantom hit thing. Because if the hit that would proc Law of Causality is dodged, then Law of Causality is just gone. You lose it. It doesn't proc. It just goes away. So that's the thing you have to learn to play around if you decide to use Law of Causality. No one is going to use Law of Causality. It is not a good enough spell to justify its use. However, it does work on this build because we are blocking stuff with our sword. And when you block stuff with your sword does not have 100% physical block. Not any weapons do, right? Some shields do. You can check in the item description of the weapon. It'll tell you how much physical it blocks. And if that number is 100, then it blocks 100% of physical damage. The turtle shield that I'm using does not block that, neither does the sword. Since I am always taking some damage, even when I block, it helps proc Law of Causality, right? So even if I block the hit, it still counts towards it still counts towards Law of Causality popping off, right? But for the most part, when you proc Law of Causality, you're going to proc it on people doing combo attacks or 2 people hitting you at the same time. This is a great example. Look at this. I just chug my flask because I know that that spell is going to proc Law of Causality because it's going to hit me 3 or 4 times, and they're still attacking me while that spell is going off. You can roll once Law of Causality is triggered. When it starts swelling and gets ready to burst, you can roll then, but you cannot roll the attack that would set it off, right? Think of it as sort of like a bomb. Like, you can roll the explosion. You don't have to, because it's not going to hurt you. But you can roll the explosion if you want to. But what you can't roll, we're thinking of it as a bomb, right? Like a stick of dynamite. You can't roll them lighting the fuse. That's the attack you can't roll. So it's like 3 or 4 hits in order to proc it. So think of it as like them walking to the fuse, them pulling a lighter out, them striking the lighter, and then they light the fuse. That lighting the fuse attack is the one that you can't dodge. I want you to watch this. I am the Terminator of invasions sometimes, not all the time. Very frequently, I am the opposite of the Terminator. Very frequently, I am John Connor's, adopted parents or whatever. But occasionally, I am the Terminator. And, just look at, in like a 3-second interval, this entire invasion went from, we're really getting him, guys, to, oh my god, he's an unkillable nightmare. And that's what I love about invasions, is you get that pendulum swing of emotions. That's so nice. So there's a talisman called the Great Shield Talisman. It makes blocking stuff easier. It scales better. It performs better, I should say, on worse blocks. So if you put the Great Shield Talisman on a character who's using a Great Shield, you're not going to see as big as results as you would if you put the Great Shield Talisman on a sword that is blocking. Some of you might, remember me using the Great Shield Talisman to fight Millennia with my Colossal Sword build. I have a build that uses the Watchdog Greatsword. It's this giant colossal sword. And I two-hand it, and when Millennia goes for Waterfowl Dance, I just block it. I just block the first 2 volleys, and then I dodge all the rest of it. And the Great Shield Talisman allows me to do that. So the Great Shield Talisman is like really good if you're putting it on something that sucks at blocking, like a sword. So it works really well on this build. The Turtle Shield is also not great at blocking, and in fact, it's not even upgraded. All of my weapons are like plus 5, I think. Carry a Night Sword +5, I think. The shield is completely unupgraded. I upgraded my Catalyst as well, the Frenzied Flame Seal. I upgraded that, hoping that maybe it would make Law of Causality, better. It doesn't. I don't think there's anything you can do short of like wearing stuff and using stuff that increases sacred damage. Is probably the only way to make that spell do more damage. But yeah, so blocking with the sword. If we want to one-hand the sword, we can apply the shield buff, Scholar's Shield, to our shield, and for some reason, that makes the sword better at blocking. It would also work with shield grease. Another thing you can do is two-hand the sword, like so, and you'll see that that block and that attack that followed it up. I blocked that attack, and I swung, because that's how that attack works. That's how the block attack works. You block and attack. I did that, and then did another attack, and that was all of my stamina. I was completely out of stamina after that. That's why this build has so much endurance. The Turtle Talisman The Wondrous Physic is the stamina regeneration physic, as well as plus 10 intelligence, which is necessary for me to cast Law of Causality in the first place. Sometimes I run with the Viridian Amber Medallion plus 1, which gives you more stamina as well. But the Turtle Talisman is like the must, which is why this build sort of turned into like a Turtle Knight. I've got the Turtle Talisman and the Turtle Shield. And so I thought, okay, well, let's just like really lean into this turtle thing that we have going on. I talked about in another video how I don't like killing people with the cannon. And in this situation right here, I was thinking about, like, I could just throw a volcano pot on this ladder and kill that guy, the Nacho Man Randy. But I was like, man, that wouldn't be fun. Maybe something more funny would happen if I didn't do that. And so I didn't, and something more funny did happen. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, we quote-unquote throw for content. You know? Sometimes it's better to lose, because sometimes you'll see something absurd. You know? Look at this. Look how quick that block frame comes out. And look at how I was able to block a two-handed colossal sword. It's crazy. Oh, here's something you should probably think about if you're going to try and do this. Be very careful about blocking phantoms. You can block hosts all you want to. But phantoms oftentimes are way higher level than you are, and they will absolutely break your guard if they're using like a great sword or anything like that. So, you know, be careful about that. Anyway, there's the stats. Here's the armor and the weapon upgrades and stuff. You can see that here. And like I said, I always run the Turtle Talisman. Sometimes I run the Viridian Amber Medallion, but, you know, you could put something else there if you wanted to. But the point is to just try and have as much stamina as possible so that you're not getting guard broke, so that you can, you know, do all the stuff. Started off as prisoner, and yeah, that's it. That's the whole video. And I appreciate you watching it. I love this build. It is a ton of fun. Not just for PvP. It's a lot of fun to go through the game with this thing and try and see what you can block. It's a lot more than you would expect, which is a lot of fun. But I will see you in the next one. Until then, later, y'all.